The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Well, good Monday morning, or I should say good afternoon. I'm Dynamic Dave, and welcome to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. Hit me up on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And by the way, join us to the march, or I should say for the march to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. All you got to do is go out to YouTube and subscribe. Won't hurt you one bit. And at any time I post a new show, you'll get a chance to be the first to listen to it. Okay? A lot of stuff to talk about. I hope you had a great weekend. So many things to talk about. I started off thinking I was going to talk about something else, and then something in sports happened. And I've got to talk about this because there are so many tentacles that goes along with this story that I'm going to bring up here in just a moment. But before we do that, the first thing we've got to do is black facts. And I'm going to tell you quickly why black facts are so important. If you hadn't been paying attention, because unfortunately a lot of our people don't, and many of you all tune into this show to get the straight dope, and I'm about to give it to you. You know Linda McMahon and the Education Department. Oh, by the way, she's the Education Secretary, the same Education Secretary who didn't know what AI was. She was calling AI A1, like the A1 sauce. Oh, Lord have mercy, boy, we are in trouble. Well, anyway, just found out this past week, I think it was this Friday, that Linda McMahon is going to go after any school, any public school that teaches black history. So what have I been telling you guys? If you are a black church, it is incumbent upon you. You are not doing your flock, your community, your congregation, any service at all if you're not teaching black history. It is imperative. We should have been teaching it all along. You know, I posted a video on my wall the other day where the question was asked, what would you do without black creations? And it was a black guy, and he was asking a white guy this. Things like the light bulb, the stoplight, the refrigerator, the air conditioner, open heart surgery, blood transfusions. It just went on and on and on. And ultimately, the white guy realized, hey, I didn't realize black people created so much. And unfortunately, a lot of our people don't realize that either. So please, please, please start teaching black history. One other thing today, later on in the show, we're going to at least ask you not to use the N-word. I've got a video that I want you to hear, some sound that I want you to hear about why you should stop using that word. And all you got to do is start an hour, and then start a day, and then start a week, and then a month. But either way, we got to stop using that word. Okay? So that's what's on the agenda. Well, other than the black fact, we've got some other things on the agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about voting in blocks and why that's important. We're also going to talk about they don't care who your daddy is. I know that's bad English, but that's going to be the main topic when we come back from a black fact. Trump had a judge arrested. You all don't really realize how dangerous this is beginning to get. Okay, Republicans and the Three-Fifths Compromise. Wait till you hear this idiot. Man, it just goes on and on and on. More Republican thievery. DeSantis and his wife. Okay, yeah. But, you know, we're not hearing about it. The national media is certainly not talking about it. All right. States you would prefer to educate your children. There are a few of them. And you might want to think about that, particularly if your children are black. And we won't give up and we won't give in. Wait till you hear what the Chicago mayor had to say about Donald Trump and his terrorist blackmail. And speaking of terrorists, since the Trump administration is so interested in making sure that we get the terrorists, the domestic terrorists, out of this country, why aren't they deporting white supremacists? All of that and more. Yeah, as I told you, we've got a jam-packed show as normal. We'll be back in a moment. Before we do anything else, we got to do Black Facts, and here they are.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
Say the words concentration camps, and most will readily surmise the topic has to do with World War II and the Nazis. But this is really different. The hard labor, gruesome deaths, and barbarism here is about the death camp in Mississippi, United States. It shouldn't be surprising that America, with all its black hatred going on for centuries, has a death camp. But what is actually surprising is we never really heard about it or read about it. It is not even talked about in a whisper, in contrast to how loudly the German death camps are being talked about. The Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez, Mississippi, USA, was where about 20,000 freed black slaves were thrown in, to starve, to suffer, and to perish. 1863 wasn't a year of singular, horrific events, but a year that encapsulated the systemic evil black Americans faced. It was already horrible enough in the North. Discrimination ran rampant. Segregated schools, limited job opportunities, and constant social exclusion were the hallmarks of black life. The violence was both physical and psychological. Whippings, beatings, and even lynchings were commonplace methods of control and had continued on the rise, regardless the Emancipation Proclamation, which was decreed during the Civil War. The Civil War was now over. Black Americans felt betrayed yet again to have trusted that the Emancipation Proclamation decreed by Abraham Lincoln was meant to change everything. It was a sham all along. They had become freed slaves for nothing. It was more or less the same, as they were literally denied all privileges that were due them on every front. This would compel these heartbroken black men and women to dust up and embark a mass relocation to where they had thought would be better and peaceful for them, only to meet the cruelest of fates there, mistreatments they never did face even when they were slaves. In this video, we are unmasking to you a sad history which has been so hidden that you most likely have never heard of it, one so dark that it takes you where forgiveness cannot be found. Before we continue, do kindly support our work. Hit the thumb button, share with friends and families, spread our eye-opening black narratives for people to know better and become better. Without further ado, let us delve in. Somewhere in the foothills of Mississippi, the trees grow heavy with abundant uneaten peaches. So nourishing and big these peaches look that one would wonder why the locals do not eat it. Varieties of tales have haunted the Devil's Punch Bowl in Mississippi for decades, from pirates to plane crashes. While the land itself may not be full of treasure, it is haunted by the history of mass unalivings, terror, and a past filled with hatred for black Americans that cannot be ignored. One particularly haunting case involves the hellish treatment of black Americans who fled to Mississippi for refuge during the Civil War of 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 freed African Americans in rebel states, and after the Civil War, the 13th Amendment manumitted all U.S. captives wherever they were. Despite these proclamations, the reality for many newly freed African Americans was far from the freedom they had hoped for. Abraham Lincoln, an American lawyer, politician, and statesman who was later elected as the 16th President of the United States in the 1860s, issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1, 1863. It was a decree stating that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states should be set free.
That on the first day of January, in the year of our Lord 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free.
But a careful look into the Emancipation Proclamation would pop up some mind-blowing questions like, why did the whites suddenly want emancipation for the blacks? Weren't these the same people who despised the blacks so much? So what changed? And who were the people that stood behind the sudden reconsideration of the blacks' predicaments? Now let us dig in to find some answers to these puzzle-like questions. In 1861, 12th of April, the American Civil War had broken out. It was so intense that the Union was losing most of its population rapidly. Although the population of the Union was more than the Southern population, this didn't seem to give them an upper hand. The Northern states, also referred to as the Union states, had constituted 22 states, while the Southern states, also called the Confederacy states, were made up of just 11 states. In 1860, the entire population of the United States was 31.4 million. 3.8 million men, approximately 12% of the total population, were enrolled in the military service. 620,000 had died, that is 2% of the total population, in the war. Seeing this, President Abraham Lincoln knew that he had to do something. In the same vein, with his astute vision and keen mind, he had come up with the move of acquiring more manpower. Lincoln had figured that the only productive manpower which could have been readily available to salvage the sad end closing in on them were the black slaves on their shores. Abraham Lincoln had enticed the entire African American slaves with emancipation in a bid to get them to fight for the Union. This was called the Emancipation Proclamation, a decree set to liberate all slaves immediately. Things had worked out as planned by Abraham Lincoln. The Emancipation Proclamation idea had successfully lured the entire black slaves and their troops to the side of the Union. These blacks had fought loyally in a 2-year civil war against the Confederacy and had defeated them for the Union. They had fought for their belief in a brighter future where nothing other than racial and economic equality is the order. But after all said and done, the nation they had fought and won a war for was still unprepared to deal with the question of full citizenship for its newly freed black population. The Reconstruction implemented by Congress, which lasted from 1866 to 1877, was aimed at reorganizing the Southern states after the Civil War, providing the means for readmitting them into the Union, and defining how whites and blacks could live together in a non-slave society. The South, however, saw the Reconstruction idea as a humiliating, even vengeful, imposition and did not welcome it. The newly freed slaves were faced with an increasingly dire situation now. Many had neither education nor money, being denied both during their enslavement. They were often forced into sharecropping, renting land from their former owners and giving a portion of their crops as rent. This arrangement kept them in a cycle of grave poverty and dependence. These challenges had become overwhelming and unendurable. Starvation, segregation, beatings, whippings, killings continued on the rise. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 loomed large, forcing free blacks to live in constant fear of being recaptured and returned to a life of servitude. In this heat, about 110,000 freed slaves and escapees would be compelled to undertake a massive exodus from the northern part of the country. Many traveled through Natchez, Mississippi, seeking shelter and a new start. By 1860, the population of Natchez was about 6,612, including 4,272 whites, 2,132 freed slaves, and 208 free blacks. By 1870, the population had grown to 9,057, with 3,728 whites and 5,329 blacks. This drastic increase in the black population raised tensions in the city. The residents of Natchez, feeling resentful that the people who were once their property were now free, called upon the Union troops, who were still lingering after the war, to devise a merciless solution, the Devil's Punch Bowl. The Devil's Punch Bowl is a naturally enclosed area in Natchez City, Mississippi. It got its name from the unique appearance it carries, resembling a bowl-like hollow. This camp, located at the bottom of a cavernous pit with trees on the bluffs above, was seen by the Union troops as the perfect place to harbor their captives. According to Don Estes, historian and former director of the Natchez City Cemetery, the Union decided to build an encampment for the freed blacks at the Devil's Punch Bowl and walled it off so that there'd be no escape for any of them. The Devil's Punch Bowl consisted of 3 camps, all used by the troops to imprison these already freed black slaves and put them in conditions far worse than those on the plantations. This was another concentration camp. Men were made to do unthinkably hard labor, while women and children were left behind in the camp and usually deprived of food and water. The harsh weather conditions, arduous work, malnutrition, and poor hygiene would lead to a variety of health problems, fatigue, smallpox, and other insane diseases. Experts estimate that in just 1 year, more than 20,000 freed black people died at the Devil's Punch Bowl. The death rate was so incredibly high that these prisoners had begged the troops to let them go back to the plantations, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. Paula Westbrook, historian and paranormal researcher, explained that the Army didn't let the black people remove the bodies of the deceased from their midst. They just threw down some shovels and told the prisoners to bury the bodies exactly where they died. But these prisoners had already become too tired and enfeebled with incessant suffering, thus were unable at this point to dig reasonably into the ground to properly cover their dead ones. The increasingly decomposed bodies caused more diseases, and more deaths struck the camp. Regrettably, this story, like so many others, has been drowned beneath a ravine filled with pain and suffering. The United States has proved to have a deep-rooted history of racially motivated mass killings that were frequently denied and went undocumented by authorities. As James Baldwin stated in 1963, American history is longer, larger, more varied, and more terrible than anything anyone has ever said about it. James E. Yateman, a bank founder and philanthropist of the Western Sanitary Commission, visited the Devil's Punch Bowl in November 1863 and wrote an appeal to President Lincoln regarding the condition of the formerly enslaved black Americans. Yateman had written thus: 75 died in a single day. Some returned to their masters on account of their suffering. Despite the tedious and back-breaking jobs that were assigned to them, they were usually killed on a daily basis. At least a record of 20,000 deaths of men and women were recorded in a year. Without any hint of remorse or sympathy, the Union troops continued to mistreat these black Americans, not giving them any chance to leave the camp, not even to bury the dead. The dead were buried wherever they dropped, as commanded by the troops, and they had continued dying. As Westbrook noted, the people who dreamed of building their lives away from the master's whip ended up owned, tortured, and enslaved once again. They never got the chance to build their businesses, amass wealth, and provide a good life for their offspring. They never got to experience true happiness, true freedom. As at today, occasional flooding by the Mississippi River brings out skeletal remains from the mass graves that adorn the former encampment. This proves that there was indeed a plethora of death there at some point in time. Not just this, to substantiate the fact that most blacks were killed in the camps, let's take a look at the bluffs in the Devil's Punch Bowl. They're known for their massive abundance of wild peach groves, but these peaches remain uneaten by the locals, even till date. This is because the locals are conscious of the evil carried out by their progenitors. Even though they tried their best in trying to convert the entire chronicle of events into their favor, they couldn't just ignore this truth. Eaten fruits fertilized by the flesh and blood of innocent humans. Nah, that would be way too extreme. Carefully considering the entire happenings in the 1860s reveals every possible reason there should be reparations made to the entire black community, which does not even make up for the lot. There are no questions anymore as to why blacks have been the targets of such hatred throughout the entire history of the Americans. The hatred is reasonless. It confirms blacks have often been that strange fruit hanging from America's trees, as Billie Holiday famously sang. It explains why black people are overrepresented in prisons, why legislation in favor of black progress takes so long to pass, and why that progress is often quickly reversed by what Dr. King called white backlash. A painful yet important truth is that blacks were never intended to be citizens of America. They were never intended to own land, become political leaders, or contribute in meaningful ways to help the country. The Americans never planned on considering blacks as humans or citizens. They believed these people existed to serve and enrich white enslavers, to be the property of those who could afford them, and to be used as collateral when necessary to secure other enslaved blacks. This was why the Confederate States fought so hard to maintain the institution of slavery. The reality of the Devil's Punch Bowl and many other similar camps is a stark reminder of the horrors that freed black people faced even after the abolition of slavery. Abigail Cooper, an assistant professor of history, researched the experiences of African Americans in refugee camps during the Civil War. Over 200 refugee camps were established at that time, with more than 800,000 African Americans passing through them. These camps became places of monumental transformation for black people. It was a time when the black community started to see America not as an enslaver, but as their home. The camps, however, were far from what they envisioned. The conditions were grim, disease was rampant, and people lived in constant fear of raids from white Southerners. Many white people also sought shelter in these camps, but they were treated differently from blacks. They received more rations and better treatment over the blacks. Despite these unrelenting hardships and struggles, these camps would serve as a safe haven, where these blacks could still endeavor to experience what it feels like to be free, what it feels like to not be the property of a fellow human, what it feels like to start up what could be called a home. Families reunited, and people from various cultures and traditions came together. Some camps had access to education. For many black people, a good pair of shoes was a crucial possession. During slavery, slave owners would lock their shoes at night to prevent escape. Having shoes was essential for the journey to the camps, as it was easy to spot an escapee without them. Refugees found creative ways to protect themselves. Some even crafted makeshift footwears from plantain leaves, which had a strong smell that helped throw off the scent of the hounds used by patrollers and former owners. The journey to freedom was long and fraught with danger. Racial terror and lynchings were common, and many black people were brutally injured or killed. These retaliatory killings were often unaccounted for, but left a lasting impact on the black community. In remembering the Devil's Punch Bowl, we confront a painful chapter of American history, but we must do so to ensure such atrocities are never repeated. The suffering of those who were imprisoned, starved to death, and forced into labor to the breakdown in this cruel encampment must never be forgotten. Their plight serves as a stark reminder of the horrors of racial oppression and the long struggle for freedom and equality. As we reflect on these events, we are reminded of the words of Martin Luther King Jr., "Injustice anywhere hurts justice everywhere. We are all connected, and what affects one person directly affects everyone indirectly." This should be a call to acknowledge the past, strive for justice, and work towards a future where every individual shall be treated with dignity and respect.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that black fact. Of course, it's talking about the Devil's Punch Bowl. I've mentioned that quite often on this show. Unfortunately, there are a lot of places like that. Not as bad as that was. That's down near Natchez Trace. You start in Memphis and you can drive all the way down there. Around the Devil's Punch Bowl is a peach grove. And many people say that the peaches, when they grow on some of those peach trees, are the prettiest peaches that you've ever seen. But most people will not even eat them, especially the natives, the people that live around the area. They will not touch those peaches. And those people who are tourists who come and to the area, when informed about what those peaches are grown with, the fertilizer, most of the people would throw them back as well. So anyway, again, black facts are important. Black history is important. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's frustrating, but it is something that we must deal with if we are going to rise above what we are and what they've allowed or attempted to make us. Okay? We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into something that I really had no choice. Let's put it this way. Okay? So, Black Facts, or I should say Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices, back in a moment, right here on joinetradio.com.
Hi, I'm David W. Coleman, host of Black Focus Radio and the weekly sports magazine. We here at joinetradio.com would like to thank you for all the love and support you've given us. Our goal is to keep you inspired and informed daily with quality programming from gospel music, news, talk, and sports. Log on to joinetradio.com for the program lineup, and while there, be sure to make a donation. Then download our app and carry us anywhere in the world. Please continue to spread the word about joinetradio.com. And if you are an entrepreneur or have an upcoming event or you'd like to start a show, let the professional writers and producers here at joinetradio.com help you get the word out. Call me at 615-554-0568 for more details. In the meantime, stay informed and inspired daily right here on joinetradio.com.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube as we march to 1,000 subscribers. And our new campaign is join us as we try to get rid of the N-word. Okay? Don't say it. Just don't say it. I'm trying to come up with a good slogan for it. Just don't say it. Okay? So we'll talk about that as we move forward. It begins on today's show. Me, myself, I don't have to worry about it. I don't say the word anyway. I use it as a descriptor of things that I'm trying to make a point about, but as to wantonly use it as I hear it so often every day by our people, no. I don't describe another person as that word. I'll tell you what you can do. Just simply, instead of using the N-word, say brother or sister, and watch how that person responds to you. Okay? Okay, so I didn't plan to talk about this, but it's just been so much fervor around this particular subject that I'm about to bring up. And my son and I had a very long conversation about it as well. So I was initially going to do a quick drop, but I'm kind of glad that I waited because I wanted to just make sure me, I like facts. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft. Now, no, this is not a sports show. This is not a sports segment. This is actually how sports infiltrates our lives every day. Okay? And many of you may know where I'm about to go. Many of you all may not. And it has to do with Shedeur Sanders. And, of course, his father, Deion Sanders. Of course, this past weekend, it was the NFL draft. And prior to the draft, all of the hype was surrounding Deion Sanders and his son, Shedeur. And many people were hyping the fact that he was the best quarterback in the nation this year. Of course, me, as a sports analyst and covering the NFL for quite a bit of time, I look at sports a little differently from other people. Okay? Now, I don't want to get dragged into the muck and the mire about stats and all this other stuff, but that was one of the reasons why people thought he was this great quarterback. I told my son a couple of years ago, about a year ago, that I don't think he's a good quarterback. Okay? And this came up because I am a Oakland Raider fan. I did say Oakland, but Vegas Raiders. That just shows you how far back I go with the Raiders. Okay? And all of this hoopla about Tom Brady and, they knew the Sanders and, they were going to draft him 6th and all this other stuff. Ultimately, he didn't get drafted 2nd. He didn't get drafted 1st. He didn't get drafted 6th. Okay? He went through the first day and didn't even get drafted in the first round. He didn't get drafted in the second round, the third round, the fourth round, or the 5th round. Oh, let me take it back. He got drafted in the 5th round. Okay? He got drafted by Cleveland. And many people are upset, well, why didn't Cleveland go ahead and get him in the first place? Well, here's what I try to tell people about the NFL. The NFL, when they evaluate talent, particularly a quarterback, they evaluated not just what you do on the field and your stats. There are a whole lot of things that go on behind the scenes as it relates to whether or not they're going to spend millions of dollars on you. Now, I will tell you this. If the NFL thought he was as great as he thought he was and his daddy thought he was, then the NFL would have drafted him. Let me give you an example. The young man by the name of Pierce that came out of Tennessee, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, last name Pierce. I want to say Antonio Pierce, but that may not be right. He was drafted, 26th, 27th, somewhere in there. Let me grab my iPad real fast. He was drafted 26th or 27th, somewhere in there. And this guy is a problem. Everybody knows it. But you know what? The NFL thought, or at least the Atlanta Falcons thought, that this guy could help them. So what did they do? They drafted him in the first round. Hello? Y'all follow me yet? See, the one thing about the NFL is if they believe that you can help them win, you're going to have to be a real bad apple before they won't draft you. That's just the bottom line on it. You're going to have to be a real bad apple. All right. So James Pierce Jr. is his name. Now, what's my point? If the NFL thought Shadir Sanders was as good as the hype machine and his daddy had put forth, then they would have drafted him far earlier than the 5th round. See, that's what you all don't get because y'all caught all up in your feelings. Y'all caught all up in the media and the hype that went out with Shadir Sanders. That's an important point. Here's the other thing. I got a feeling, and just based on some of the comments that I've heard from national media, and I'm not talking about the guys who've never played. I'm talking about the guys who do play, who did play. There was more to it. Shadir didn't want to work out for these people. We know he's slow of foot. We know that his release is not that great. And people, well, look how he stands in the pocket and he's tough. Here's the one thing you all didn't realize, that in the first round alone, 82% of the people that were drafted were from 2 conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. He played in the Big 12, which everyone knows is a weak-ass conference. Let's just be real. Sorry, I know some of y'all are Sanders sycophants. But again, as I posted on the Friends, because, Shadir came out and said, well, I hate it when people start using God as an excuse why they didn't get what they wanted. And I posted, I said, God had nothing to do with this. You were not a very good player. And one of my friends, a female, said, oh, that was mean of me. Well, number one, let me tell you something, and y'all gonna get mad at me. I don't talk sports with a lot of females. Just don't. Okay? Because females talk from an emotional point of view. A lot of men do too, Cowboy fans. Okay? They talk from, I'm an analyst. As much as I love my team, the Raiders, I dog them when it's necessary. I dogged them when they hired Tom Brady because I felt like, look, Tom Brady has never run a team, has no business trying to run a team. Okay? He's a stakeholder, 10%. How are you giving 10% ownership to someone and he's going to run your team? If I'm the general manager, I'm ticked off. But that's a side note. That's a side note. So I'm an analyst. So when all of this stuff started with Deion Sanders, I have been very critical of him from day one. Okay? And I'll be talking, I'm not a big fan of Deion Sanders. I wasn't as when he was a player. I'm just one of those people that I just don't like this. Okay? I believe in doing your business and going home. I don't need to hear this chop, chop, chop. But that was Deion. And look, you can't take anything away from him. Damn good player. Hall of Famer. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay? But what I saw in his child, neither one of them, Shiloh or Shadur, possessed the talent that their daddy did. Here's the other thing that came out of this, is that I believe coaches were a little concerned about the circus and what comes with it. Colorado has become a circus. Colorado doesn't, man, because Colorado hasn't been relevant for what? The last, 15, 20 years? They haven't been relevant in a while. So any attention that will come to the Colorado Buffaloes, those white people in Boulder are thrilled. By the way, when you go to Boulder, ain't many of us there. There are probably more black people on that campus on the football team than there is in Boulder. I'm just saying. All right? So they're thrilled to have all them little black bodies bringing their black money and bringing all that television money to Boulder. Remember what I told you about the power of the black bodies on the football court? Oh, yeah, that's going to be part of the show today. So anyway, so those are a couple of things. Now, Shadur has made the comment that I don't see why it's a bad thing for a kid to have a daddy who supports them. I totally agree with you, Shadur. Look, I'd be the first to tell you, I support my son and daughter 100%. But here's the one thing that you all fail to realize about the NFL. The NFL don't need you. Hello? Did y'all hear me? The NFL doesn't need you. The NFL has been around for decades. There have been people who have went and came, who go and come. The NFL is clicking. The NFL, they basically print money. They're an exclusive group. They print money. So you thinking because you are a player and you were running around, being this mouthy person, and you wanted to say, well, if Archie Manning can do it, I can do it. Archie, look what Archie did with Eli. And I keep hearing all this. See, here's one thing you all are not paying attention to. That's an exclusive club, the NFL. And those people are out to spend money on a person who, especially a quarterback position, where this guy is going to be the face of my franchise. You know, Travis Hunter was drafted. And people say, well, Travis Hunter is going to be the face of the Jacksonville Jaguars. No, he isn't. You know why he isn't? As good as he is, you know why he's not going to be the face of that franchise? Is because he doesn't touch the ball every play. Let me just say this, every offensive play. Okay? Every time Trevor Lawrence takes the ball, his face, his name is on that TV. So he's not going to be the face of that franchise. Now, why am I saying that? Because these owners spend millions of dollars on players to be the face of their franchise. And